Welcome to Beyond the Portrait. I am so excited to be able to share this next conversation with you with my cosmic camp counselors, the wonderful AstroTwins, Ophira and Tali Edut. We talk about their beginnings as young entrepreneurs, starting from elementary school, selling their calligraphy, to having their own magazine, being headhunted to then go work with Gloria Steinem at Ms. Magazine, and all of the amazing things that have led them to become one of the biggest astrologers in the world. What I love the most about the AstroTwins is they empower you to make decisions for yourself. And they have found life hacks in order to go with the flow of the cosmos. We also get into their brand new book, The Astrology Advantage, which I'm really excited. It just came out. I use their practices every single day, so I'm really excited to share this with you. Without further ado, my friends, the AstroTwins. Hi, guys. I'm so excited to see you.
Hey, so great to see you too. Looking adorable there with Margot behind you. Love it.
Thank you. I am so happy you guys are here. And I'm so grateful that you're spending this time. I think it's going to be really a fun conversation. So I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves so you guys can start.
I'm Ophira Edut from the AstroTwins. She, her. And I am Tali Edut from the AstroTwins. She, her.
Perfect. Well, we got lots of stuff to talk about. So, and this is the first interview where I have twins and two people at once. So this is going to be so fun. All right. So basically how I've been framing this podcast is it's kind of like a time capsule. So I think it's good to kind of see like where you're kind of informed from the past, which, I think astrology definitely comes into play there, and how your present is impacted by that. And then what is going on in the present. And then we can talk about the future. So it's kind of nice to have like a living time capsule of like your life, right? Let's talk about your childhoods, because I think like knowing you as well as I do, I think that it's definitely impacts how you guys see the world.
Well,
for sure. Where do we begin?
Right.
Yeah. We shared a womb.
Right. She kicked me out early, ate all the placenta. I had to go in an incubator. Which I think
4 minutes later, I arrived.
Ophi arrived, and all of a sudden, I kind of think about the fact that we were separated for the first couple days of our lives, or maybe I don't know how long I was in the incubator, but gonna have to ask Mom that. Why do I have separation anxiety, Mom? And Ophi's just fine. Oh,
yeah. How far back did you really want to go, Brittany?
Yes. That wasn't the initial
you want to go to the
plan,
womb?
But like, yeah. I think core memories are good.
We were born in Detroit. Our dad came over 3 weeks before we were born and learned English from Sesame Street. Our parents thought that they were going to move back to the Middle East, and they never did. They stayed in the United States and raised us in Detroit in a very 1 mile away from Eminem's hangout on 9 Mile Road. And so we grew up in a very diverse neighborhood where you have to be very creative and resourceful. And our neighbors were all different cultures and backgrounds, like literally. And it turned out to be a real gift because we just played in the streets and were Girl Scouts and had slumber parties with people who came from very different backgrounds than us. But that didn't really matter. I mean, we were aware of it, but it didn't stop us from hanging and befriending and finding common humanity, or beating each other up depending on the day because we were kids.
Yeah.
And just growing up together. So that has informed our worldview of like being resourceful and inclusive. So I would say that's a start to it.
What about you, Tali? What would you say?
I mean, our childhood was interesting at home. It was very different in some ways than what was out in the world. Where we grew up was had a very small Jewish population, and there were actually more. It's mostly either white, black, and Chaldean, which is an Iraqi Catholic group that emigrated over. And there's a large population. So our dad was raised in Israel. So it's funny, there were all these, Arabic food stores that we used to go to. So inside our home, we had Hanukkah and Passover and Shabbat and all the Jewish traditions, but our classmates really had no clue what that was all about. It felt very divided in some ways, which I also think gave us a lens on what it's like to be part of an other culture, part of a non-dominant culture.
Middle Eastern in the Midwest could be the title of that movie. So, and everybody in our family spoke a different language. Like our grandfather spoke German, our grandmother was from Luxembourg, our dad was from Israel. My mom spoke everybody's language and Russian just because she had studied it for no apparent reason in college. So there were all these languages, and I think that kind of Tower of Babel household maybe informed us finding astrology as a common language too. It was like the only unifier that we could find anywhere, universal language.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think I've read your horoscopes and stuff for years before I met you. And, what I found with actually knowing you in the real world, it's like you guys are extremely open and have created this community that I've never seen anything quite like it. I always joke that you guys are like the team, camp counselors, it's like, or the big sister that I always wanted, it's like, because I, didn't have sisters really, it's like, and so to have the big sisters that kind of welcome everybody in and kind of lead the way. And I mean, I've literally had you guys tour us in Barcelona, it's like, so you guys are quite literally camp counselors for, for your little chicks.
Take that role. That's the highest compliment.
If our mother heard that, she'd be thrilled. She was a Girl Scout leader, PTA president. She tried to
Leo.
Yeah, she tried to keep us in Girl Scouts. She made it 1 year past, elementary school, but it was like, this is not cool. I can't do this, Mom, And
but she did give us that welcoming. And, I think that also came
from parents did,
our grandmother had to escape from the Nazis and hide in the forest in France and pose as a nun. So, and our grandfather's family left Berlin, went to Palestine in the 30s, and then he was in the U.S. Army as an chief interpreter for the Nuremberg trials, actually.
Wow.
So interpretation is in our family lineage, as well as being welcomed into communities that were not our own. So there are running themes. Our mom is a rabbi, and she has an interfaith community where she teams up. Detroit has a lot of Black churches and mosques, so she teams up with them to do community building in Detroit now. So I like that you use the word welcoming, because that is one that I've kind of taken on. Our friend Terry, mutual friend Terry, said it first. I was like, yeah, I like that adjective. I think the world needs more welcoming people.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you guys do it in practice too. I mean, I think we'll get into kind of how you've encouraged diversity in your hiring practices and even in your publications. But before we get there, I want to talk about the van, because I think this is an adorable story that everybody needs to know. It is so cute. Tell me about the van. You guys were teenagers.
It wasn't actually a van.
Oh,
it wasn't actually a van. It should have been. It was a Ford Fairmont that our grandfather gave. It should have been. It was like a van. It was our grandfather got a new car when we turned 16. So he gave us his Ford Fairmont with a bucket front seat and not a bucket front seat, like the one seater
couch.
Yeah, it was like a couch on the front seat, like 3 people across on it. Definitely a grandpa car, dad car, but we got these little tiny tubes of Tester's enamel paint, and we were just gonna decal, I don't know, we were really into this. We got obsessed with the 60s and Peter Max and wanting to be bohemian hippies, which made sense after we really learned astrology. But we wound up painting this entire mural on the car that was Sergeant Pepper's, Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, it was
we named it the Psychedelic Chariot. It was I mean, the Jimi Hendrix was the gas tank opened into his cheek. It was so we would drive down the street and people would be like, whoa, we'd watch heads turn, or we'd always find notes under our windshield. And I think it was partly because we never were able to fit in anywhere. So we just like went full in the other direction. I remember there's, the class president, I found this to be a triumph because we were like art school girls before there was art school.
Yeah.
And I remember he was like, I come to school every day just to see what you guys are going to wear or drive up in. So,
I love that.
we actually found a sort of weird popularity by being as unpopular as you could possibly be, but really openly expressive with our art and design and creativity.
I love that. Well, and so you went to college for design, right? So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went to University of Michigan School of Art and Design, and we actually got in using our car, and also our other entrepreneurial venture, Denim Rebellion, that we started. Remember that, Ophi? We painted these elaborate kind of comic strips down jeans. We used what did we use? Like markers, right?
Design markers. Well, what happened was we were going shopping in this little suburb of Detroit called Royal Oak, and I tripped and I ripped the knee of my jeans before getting in the car. So for some reason I started drawing on my jeans and we went in this vintage clothing store. The guy was like, "Where'd you get those?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he came up with the idea of like, if we gave you some of these secondhand Levi's, could you do that to them? So Tali took it to the next level because I had used a ballpoint pen and we bleached the jeans and then we drew with markers. I mean, it got more and more elaborate. We even had a window display. It was in the newspaper.
You guys were teenagers, right? We were 16.
Yeah, 16.
We were 16.
Yep.
I mean, it's so crazy to me because I met you because of Astropreneurs. So that is bananas to me that you guys were already starting businesses as teens, and creative businesses and thinking outside the box. And, it's like, I mean, you guys have a stellar business and it's like, and you guys are such hard. I mean, we're all three of us are like wood rats, right? In terms of the Chinese astrology.
Yeah, we're water.
Yeah, or you're water. So we're Chinese rats and I'm wood and you guys are water. Yeah.
Resourceful rats.
Exactly.
Yeah. Give us a pair of ripped up Levi's. We'll turn them into a window display for you.
I mean, what do you
want?
That shocks
we'll
me.
Turn your trash into treasure. That's what we do as rats, right?
It's true. It's true.
It kind of shocks me that we did that, but I think we were fueled. I just liked having money. We did not grow up with money. Our dad was a landscaper. Our mom was always doing odd jobs like translations. She'd fall asleep on the kitchen table translating people's documents. And so there was, of course, that drive to fit in and be accepted and be cool. But even when we turned in the opposite direction, said this is who we are, we still wanted a vintage clothing budget. We were shopping the Salvation Army before it was cool, I think, too. We were like, or it was
just
cool,
remembering
but
our mom's translation business was called In Other Words, which is pretty clever.
It's very clever.
But that is kind of also the theme for our family's life, probably right there. Our first business was a calligraphy business. We were given a calligraphy set. I won the district art contest and was given a calligraphy set. So we got obsessed with that. And then the school district, before we finished elementary school, was paying us to hand letter the certificates. And
that one was driven by the desire for a candy and ice cream budget.
Right.
You're literally getting paid budget. As children.
We're getting
from a school district.
Which one of
it's
us
probably illegal. Won't drop any names, but yeah.
Which one of us was the hustler who put the price tag on it? Was that me back then?
I don't remember.
Tali's very
I know, maybe. Although
I don't even remember what we got. I'm sure it was way under market value, probably like $10. They probably thought they were like wow, we just saved big time. But I actually just read last night that Steve Jobs dropped out of college. I was looking at his TED Talk. He dropped out of college, Reed College, but then audited classes and did a calligraphy class, which was
So
his
cool.
inspiration for the typography of Apple being so good, because he learned about the elements of design and typography. So
No
I did not know
Okay.
that until
That's
last
way.
so
night.
cool. That's so cool. And that just goes to show like you never know where something's going to come up, right? Like it's important to have, I mean, you guys are Sagittariuses and I'm a Sag rising. So it's like that thirst for knowledge, right? Is kind of like a thing for Sagittariuses. It's like, and you just never
Yeah.
know. It's like if you're interested in something, which I think is going to lead to where we're going with this, it's like, but before we get into that part, I think let's talk about how you guys found yourself. Cause we're in college, you're doing a design degree. That's when you found astrology. Let's talk about that.
Yep. We were actually publishing a magazine because we could not stop. It started with the calligraphy pens and then the markers. And our mom had actually gotten an Apple IIe or IIc in the early 1980s. So we were always tinkering around with computers. And when we started college in the early 90s, there was a wave of the art school had a whole computer lab with desktop publishing, as it was called.
Photoshop
Then
1.0. It wasn't even a
Photoshop.
1.0 because it was
No,
just Adobe
Quark.
Photoshop.
It was
Yeah.
called, was
Oh,
the
I remember
layout
Quark
program.
Express.
Quark
Yeah.
Express.
There
Early in
it was
design.
PageMaker. There wasn't even Quark yet.
Oh, right. It was PageMaker. And our aunt, who was a huge influence on us, was a creative director and graphic designer. So she had a computer, and so would always let us play around with her art supplies and computers. So she was really fostering that too. But we were publishing a magazine that we started called Hues. It was a multicultural women's magazine, more of that theme of bringing people together.
Absolutely.
And we were writing about really like heavy duty identity politics. But then at the end of the meeting, we would just start talking about astrology, and the air would like lighten up in the room, and like everybody would start like laughing and chit chatting. It wasn't like we weren't enjoying ourselves, but it was like a way of talking about differences. It wasn't polarizing and heavy. So we got really into it, and my college boyfriend gifted me for my 21st birthday a full birth chart from Crazy Wisdom Bookstore in Ann Arbor, the local New Age bookshop. I didn't even really know much about what a birth chart even was, but I got this spiral bound 30-page printout that was like described every planet in our chart and the angles or aspects, as they're called, that they made to each other. And I shared it with Tali. We're like, whoa, this is unbelievably accurate. And I
It was
just
so insane.
didn't know what to do with myself. So yeah, that started like a real curiosity. So we started doing other people's charts with a little piece of software that we got, and reading the interpretations out of a book from Barnes and Noble or Borders, store number 1 in Ann Arbor.
It was store number 1. That's right.
Yeah. And just memorizing it and learning it and seeing how insanely accurate it was, not knowing why, not really caring after a while too much, because we're like, this is really helpful to people to know this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it's interesting because it really has informed kind of how you see the world. And I think, you guys are astrologers, it's like still working in magazines, but I think we gotta talk about, your magazine, right? You were nationally distributing this magazine when you're in college. So there's that. But I love that it was like you were talking about social issues and those things. And that kind of led to your, short period of time working in publishing and, like working at Ms. Magazine. And, I think that
I was actually born out of another crazy thing that happened, which was when we were in our first year of school at the University of Michigan. On the very last day, our friend from New Jersey had a couple of his cute buddies come and pick him up, and I developed a crush on one of them, and I think made out with him before he left. And I was like, oh, I gotta go see him this summer. We were writing each other letters by hand. But instead of just saving up to buy a ticket, I entered the Sassy Magazine reader produced issue contest because I was like, oh, maybe I could win? I don't know. So, and I did wind up winning, which was
Of course you
insane.
did.
I wound up replacing Neil, the art director, and totally forgot about Paul, the guy. But
It's probably for the best.
wow, yeah. I mean, he was cool, but whatever. He had his high school girlfriend, Mimi, I remember, that he would write about in letters, allude to. And I was like, what's going on here? But whatever.
The mind
Sassy
game started
call.
soon.
Yeah. Mimi, I don't know why I just recalled the name Mimi, Scorpio moon. Do not cross us. Do not Venus and Scorpio. I remember you were cheating on Mimi with these letters, but they're probably married now. Anyways, I went on to do Sassy, and that just opened up a whole new world because I got to meet Jane Pratt and Andrea Lynette and Kim France and Christina Kelly, who some of the listeners may know. They were legends to us Gen Xers. And just learn how to put together an issue of a magazine. But one of the things that happened there was we wanted to, it was early 90s. We're waking up as people. I wouldn't call us woke then, but we were getting there. And, we wanted to do a Black and Filipino model. The editor-in-chief replacement, Dawn Mabalon, was Filipino. And they made us squeeze in a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, white girl. So we didn't alienate the readership in the South. Literally said that to us.
Yeah.
This was 1991. And it was just like, that just lit this fire inside of me. And then I talked to Ophi about it. And in our women's studies class, we had a chance to do a project. And I was like, well, why don't we try just making a women's magazine, but like, no big deal. It's just going to be written by all these different. It was an intersectional
ask
feminist.
The girl across the hall. We'll ask our friend from this. We just
let's put a 200-pound woman in a swimsuit, 250-pound woman in a swimsuit. No big deal. Just like
we did our own swimsuit issue, our own spin on it. Yeah, I know. Like for some reason, as I reflect back, it's like it seemed easier to enter a national contest than just rent a car for a booty call. It seemed easier to start our own magazine than, I don't know, just live with the anger of having your creative direction interrupted. So I'm glad we did. I'm glad we didn't go, wow, that seems like way too hard. It just didn't ever occur to us.
Maybe it was at 19. The word yesterday was cleaning. I don't know why I went on cleaning binge. Well, Mercury retrograde in Virgo probably, but the word counterculture came into my mind. I was like, I'm kind of a countercultural person. Like I guess what seems normal to me, it takes a while. So like I went to Burning Man for 12 years. Now I don't go anymore because I've done that.
Because now it's a different audience, right? You did it before it was like the finance bros,
Yeah, there were still some there, but they were just starting to come. It was like pre-cell phone range. I like I like to do things that seem normal to me don't seem normal to other people, but I don't understand why. So
it's like you're very outside the box. Yeah.
I guess astrology kind of was that, I was like, why wouldn't you use astrology as a tool? Knowing your moon sign makes so much sense. And people would be like, okay, glaze over when we talk to them about it. And now it's exciting that people have embraced it finally. This is like kind of a dream. Like we were always like, wouldn't the world be so much better if people just understood themselves and give other people that grace? And when people understand themselves, whether it's through astrology, like even through the lens of astrology, when you make room for yourself and your own humanity, you make room for other people. And that spills over into gender, into race, into lifestyle choices. People think you're putting others in a box with astrology, but that's not true at all.
Yeah.
There's not just 12 categories. You have every planet in your chart. You have a moon sign, a Venus sign. And so
Yeah.
astrology kind of become, I don't know how I just went off on this tangent
No, I'm
from,
here for
you
it.
know, Sassy Magazine to like philosophizing about the stars, but it really is like,
Well, it's all a quest to figure out who you are. I mean, we're identical twins, so all we've been asked our whole life is, what's the difference between you and your sister? So we had to somehow figure out what on earth that could possibly be that made us individuals in people's eyes and how they could tell us apart. Like, so we had to think about, like,
Yeah.
we had to do what we had to master a skill that the world needs now more than ever by being identical twins and who got along and created and were creative collaborators. We had to find our individuality, but still coexist and do the 1+1=3 sum is greater than its parts.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people, I think, feel like in order to be part of something, whether it's a movement or activism, they have to, kind of picking up on what Tali just said, they have to deny who they are. Like there's no
Yeah.
seat at the table because they're maybe part of a dominant group
Mhm.
or an outsider. So
Or they have
they
to
have to
assimilate.
silently try to fit in, and
Yeah.
assimilate. And we could never assimilate because there were just too many parts of us that were mismatched in the eyes of the nice ironed out society. So
I mean,
so
same.
we just
have
don't
that in
want other
common.
people to feel that way either.
Yes, we do.
But that's why I
Yeah.
think you're so good at that. You know, I think I think the people that I know, you know, and are friends with now, like we all were misfits when we were growing up. And that's why we are so good at like trying to like be loving and accepting and to kind of celebrate our differences, because it's boring if it's everything's beige. Like I'm over oatmeal, you know, it's like it's just boring, you know. I think
it's like
especially,
oatmeal and
you know,
hydrangeas,
I
right?
know, you know how I feel about hydrangeas. Yes. It's not that there's anything wrong with hydrangeas. I'm just sick of them because I don't like it
Yeah.
only being one thing. Like I get
Mhm.
bored, you know, and that's like one of the things that, I mean, that's, I think, Sag, right? It's Sagittarius. It's like people who are very like globally minded, who like experiences and adventure. And, you know, it's like are constantly that quest for knowledge, you know? I mean, I
And
think
you're
that
Venus and Scorpio too, right?
yes, yes. And I love
That
that your
too.
Mercury is in Scorpio. And so that's why you guys always have the pithy one-liners that I like hysterically giggle at. So yeah, no, I got a lot of Scorpio places too.
I know
Yeah.
we have our Scorpio. I'm wearing my
Together.
Scorpio necklace today for the occasion.
Fantastic.
Just, you know, I've been calling in Scorpio lately. I'm just like, I'm gonna own my Scorpio planets now. I'm ready for it. Yeah.
I mean, it's Female Rage the Musical this year, as you guys predicted, you know, it's like the Kali energy. Yeah. I mean, I think
Totally.
that, right? It's like, and so for the listener, you guys, if you are not familiar with the twins, they literally have predicted like when the vaccine was going to come out. They like predicted the assassination attempt. It was in their book that they published almost a year ago. Like they are so, and I've never seen anything like it. I've been to now several big events with them, and they just meet people and they know what their sun signs are. Like it is uncanny. I've never seen them not be right. Like it is uncanny. And when you see them like and their dynamic and the banter, like you're gonna just be like almost wetting yourself from crying with laughter. It's so funny. So it's just they're a good time. But I like, you know, I think that it's good, you know, it's like you've kind of embraced what makes you special and unique. And I think of course you had to do that as twins, but I can always tell you apart. I've never not been able to tell you apart, you know?
Yeah, you really
Really
always have been able to. You're perceptive
photographer's
like that, you
eye.
know? I don't
Well,
think we
thank
look
you.
exactly alike at all.
No, you have
So, yeah.
differences. Yeah. And I think too, like, you know, it's like, and I think that that's interesting because for astrologers who know a lot about like birth times and things like that, you're only 4 minutes apart. But, you know, I think you guys live in different cities. You know, we've got Ophi in New York and we've got Tali in Seattle. And like that also impacts your astrology, you know? And so I think when
Yeah.
people are like, oh, pop astrology, it doesn't, you know, it's like, okay, but like it's because you're just focusing on the sun sign. That's your natal chart, right? It's like, but once you get into like the nitty gritty and the aspects and, you know, it's like, and then you do the progress charts of like where you're living. And, you know, it's like, it does kind of like start changing things.
And sun sign astrology is amazing. I like someone decided, like, I don't know, like as excited as I am about the world learning astrology, there's also become this very arrogant, like condescending, like, this type of astrology, Hellenistic astrology. And you have to read your rising sign because they heard it on TikTok, or someone decided to put their branded stamp on it, say, this is not accurate. Sun sign astrology is the broad strokes brush, and it works. I have tracked it like sun sign astrology. The sun is the essence of who you are. And guess what? Reading your rising sign on a horoscope is no more accurate because it does not take into account the degrees. So there's every time we post something, the houses are not going to be as accurate as they could be if you put your birth time in. So of course, doing your whole chart uses a fine brush, but the sun sign scopes are also important because they include people who don't know their birth time. You have to know your birth time to know your rising. And like, I bet 50% of the world doesn't have the privilege of someone recording their exact moment of birth. Should they be left out of this spiritual technology? No. I love to rant about this, but the astro elitism is really pissing me off lately because
I mean, that's fair. It's like not everybody has access. I mean, my mom's adopted, so it's like, so we don't know her birth time. And it's like, and it's something that I use astrology literally every day. It's part of my vernacular every single day. And, it's like, it's sad for me that my adopted mom can use astrology, like the deep dive that I get to do. But I'm so grateful for you guys because you have done such a great job, kind of like equalizing it so that people don't have to go into the nitty gritty. They don't have to go and, because if you, want to be an astro geek, you've got tools for that too. I've done your Become Your Own Astrologer program. So it's available to you, but it's like, but you've kind of made it more accessible, which maybe this is a good time to talk about the book. I think that like, this might be, this seems like an easy flow, but it's like, you've got a new book.
Yes.
It's called The Astrology Advantage. I'm so excited about this book. And for the listener, this book is going to change your life. And I have worked with the twins now for years, like being part of their like testing for this book. So I know that it works.
Yes,
so let's talk about your book.
Okay. So to that exact point. So I think because astrology was always like finally a place where we could belong and everybody felt like they could belong equally, we're very protective of it as like not becoming a place that people feel like they have to know everything and can't use it. So as we, for the last probably 5 to 10 years, started working with people who had brands and businesses and creative studios and wanted to use it the way you do, where it informed their lives. Because look, you have a lot of decisions, you have a lot of clients, you are building a business, you are supporting yourself. So, you can't just wait and see what happens sometimes. But so, we knew that astrology was being used as a tool by a lot of people in this way. And that trying to learn your entire chart, we could teach you, and we do now, but it's a lot and it's hard to retain, and you have to really stay in it to retain all of it. So we leaned into a shortcut called the chart dominance, where you take the 13 main points of any birth chart, your sun, moon, rising sign, all the planets from Mercury to Pluto, and then these 2 points called the north and south nodes, the lunar nodes, we think are really important.
Absolutely.
And and we put them in a calculator where it breaks your chart into what looks like a spreadsheet, and it tells you what the dominant element, that's fire, earth, air, and water, of those 13 points is, and the dominant quality, which are cardinal, fixed, and mutable in astro jargon. We rename them innovator, authority, and maven to express the quality of the qualities. Why those qualities are important is because they show what a personality test like Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram would show you: your psychological motives, your drivers, your triggers, your behavior patterns. They really can encapsulate a personality type for you based on that. So even though, for example, we are Sagittarius, which is one of the maven signs, and that's part of us, our chart is dominant in the cardinal signs that are innovator. And even though Sagittarius is a fire sign, we're dominant in water. We have
Mhm.
5 of the 13 points in water signs. So we would be like a water cardinal sign, which is Cancer. So not only are we innovators, meaning we're have a very different side to us than you would read about with any Sag, but we're watery. So we tend to be more welcoming, like you said, and more like camp counselor, Cancer energy, very den mother there.
Big sister.
So it just, big sister, exactly. So, the system, as we started to test it, you being a maven,
Yes.
I know it
Fire
helped
maven, too.
you. Fire maven. Oh, perfect. So I know that it helped you, and you can speak to this, but like really understand why you did things the way you did. What not to do, what to do more of. I would imagine might have even informed you starting this podcast, because you
Absolutely
know that mavens need to connect with people and have conversations and dialogue. So
Well, or the
it helped,
mouthpieces.
the average.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the average adult makes 35,000 decisions a day or more.
Mhm.
And we can't do all the things, even though we try, even us rats. So it was meant to help people parse out what decisions they should be making on a day-to-day basis, so they can grow and amplify and share their creativity and goodness with the world. And that's, in a nutshell, what the book is about. You do the I Am quiz, you find your archetype, and then we guide you through every part of your life, from relationships to career to family to teamwork, communication, compatibility, and you have this guide to life for yourself.
I mean, it's awesome because I think, I've known you guys personally for years now, and I've also read your stuff for years. And, I think, as I like grew up Mormon. And so I very much like have to steer clear of any type of like guru or anybody who basically is like, this is how it is. Right. So the types of kind of like spiritual guidance that I kind of have to lean on are individuals who are very empowerment based, like self-empowerment, and are not, kind of like, well, this is what it's going to be in your chart. Too bad for you. Like you're not that way,
Right,
yeah. It's like you're very
right.
evolutionary
Some people really
of
get off on that.
Yeah. And it's like, and that's what I love about you guys. Cause you're like, okay, there's no judgment, but these are maybe some lessons that you can learn. And these are kind of maybe some of your strengths. And you've done a really good job with the I am system, because, it's like, I think for people who, are constantly like, you have to fit, like what we were talking about before, you have to fit in this kind of like capitalist like box. Well, you're going to do really well as an authority if you're that kind of person, probably. But it's like, but if you're an innovator or a maven, that system doesn't really work for you. So it's like, so, you've talked about how like this kind of was created so that not everybody had to know all of their information at all times, because it is a lot to remember. But it's like, it's one thing that they have to know. It's one of the 3 words, but it's like, it's helpful for people that you're employing. It's helpful to know because there are certain strengths that come along with that. And I remember when you first introduced it, when you were talking about the innovator, I was like, oh, that's me. And then when you were talking about the authority, I was like, oh, that's me. And then when it was the maven, and it's like the both of them combined with the secret sauce of being the mouthpiece, I was like, oh yeah, that holds up. It's like, but I, as a maven, I'm so maven. Like it's like I can't remember offhand what my placements are in terms of the organization of it,
mix.
But I'm like, I think 8 maven and then 2 and 2.
I think you are.
Yeah, it's like and of course innovator and authority are exactly equal because I'm a Libra. So of course I'm equally innovator and authority, unlike the sub, but it's like I'm such a maven, it's like, but I think like for people who don't know the system yet, for one, buy the book, but 2, for me as someone who's a maven, like when you guys did like, how do you set up your workspace? I thought that was really, really brilliant because for innovators, and I know so many innovators, this is so true. It's like you guys work in the future, right? And so you like have your office, but you would maybe prefer to go sit in a coffee shop or, and then you've got the authority who like structure and you like things the way that you like things. And then you've got the mavens, the messy mavens, me. So, people who have a lot of different things going on and they have like organized chaos. And like what I felt so seen because I was like, I am organized. All my piles are organized, but only I understand it. It's like, and so you had useful tools. You're like, okay, for the mavens, this is how you work because you have so many projects all the time. That's fine. This is how you can work with that. So it doesn't drive everybody else in your house crazy. It's like, and that's what I love. It's like, there's no judgment. It's just, these are maybe some sore spots for you that you can work on. There's room for growth, and this is how you can fix it or work on it or whatever.
Totally.
No one does a shelfie like a maven, and your set there
curated
is
wall.
proof positive. A gallery wall, the layers. Our friend Jill is a maven, has a color-coded bookshelf. I mean, I could never put together a backdrop like that. It's just beautiful. But I always want to do the gallery wall, but you know.
I'll help you next time I'm in
Okay,
Seattle.
great. Absolutely. Yes, please. Please come gallery up my walls.
I will. I'll get you some art too.
Awesome.
But I love that you're making astrology accessible, and like that kind of, you know, it's like what I've been loving about recording these podcasts is it's been so fun to kind of like see how your childhood and then your teenage years inform what you're passionate about. And you know, I always butcher this word, but the democratization is kind of like how you've taken astrology. You know, it's like, because it is a place of privilege to know your exact birth time. Like there are whole countries that they don't do that. Like that's not like a thing, you know, that is possible. And so you kind of, you know, you're very much like welcoming, there's room for everyone. And so like what's genius about this system is like you don't have to know, oh, is this conjunct, you know, because I am familiar with the lingo. So like when I start, you know, going off and my friends start glazing over and they're like, Brittany, I really don't care about this. And I'm like, okay. So, you know, it's like, but I think, you know, it's such a useful tool for me, you know, it's like, and what I like about it is it's, you know, it's like for someone who has religious trauma, it's like, it's really helpful to like feel a part of the world and to feel a part of the cosmos. And that it's like that there's still free will and that you can still harness it. And what I particularly love about you guys too, like, so we did, you know, your Astropreneurs program. So it's a business course that you guys created, you know, for those that don't know, that it wasn't how to become an astrologer, though I did that course too. You know, it's like, but, you know, the Astropreneurs was how do you have a business and how do you work with the flow of the energy? So each month it was like, and that's what I think is really important too, because I think for a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, like, wouldn't it be better to know like, oh, this is like a good time to kind of like rethink things. This is a good time to work on the website. This is a good time to, you know, like a retrograde's like really good to kind of like look in the past and see what needs some like finessing. And then like in, you know, a couple of weeks or at a different season, you know, it's like you can do it then, you know, you can plan differently and you can still like achieve the same goals, right? You know, it's like you just kind of work with the flow a little bit more.
And even knowing your basic nature too, because in the book, like we really get into productivity, time management, relationship, and team building. So whether or not, even if you don't know what's happening in the stars at any given time, you always have the core essence of who you are. And you can always go back to that no matter. So like understanding your fundamental nature, like, and your fundamental tendencies doesn't leave you stuck with them, but it gives you kind of the code to your factory settings. So with the book, The Astrology Advantage, what we wanted to do was actually let people use their whole birth chart instead of their sun sign, but of a very simple way to access it. So that's why when we pull the chart dominance in, there are maybe one or two things, like some people are hybrid, innovator, maven, or equal fire, air, but we actually have identified 84 different types. And we have a bonus guide that people get when they buy the book called the 84 types, where you can see how the element and get a little name for it, like that goes along with it. But honestly, just knowing your core type, and understanding the three types, because it's rare to find someone with zero of one of them. Sometimes it does happen, but you will likely have, like, you have 2 innovator, 2 authority, and maybe 9 maven, because it has to add up to 13. So those are low, like you can actually see, and where you maybe want to balance things, because you're low on the cardinal and low on the fixed, the innovator and authority, like putting in more structure, doing more visioning is probably
Mhm.
really going to be useful for you as a maven who's
Yeah.
very much focused on the present moment and what's
Mhm.
happening now,
Mhm.
like getting support with like, but where am I going with this? And is probably, have you found that to be helpful for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and because I'm a Libra with a Libra moon. So I'm a Libra sun, Libra moon, and a Sag rising. So it's interesting that I like am low in cardinal when it's like two of the three are cardinal. You know, it's like, so it is interesting because I
Right.
am very like fire based. Like I don't know anybody who's as action forward as I am. You know, it's like I make radical change and I go fast. You know, it's like, but I need to like take it down a notch. You know, it's like it's like a good thing, but like maybe if I had a little bit more grounding and a little bit more, you know,
Yeah, we call
like
it Astro Ayurveda. It's like
yeah.
you really do get to balance the elements, you know? It's astrology, just like spirituality. We call astrology spiritual technology.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference between religion and spirituality. It's
Yeah.
like, and dogma astrology versus
Mhm.
using astrology as an amazing tool for your own evolution, you know?
Mhm.
Like, people shouldn't tell you how to use your spiritual tools. That goes
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
this is my
We like to
opinion.
say it's a tool, not a rule,
Yeah.
Yeah.
astrology. And when people ask about believing in astrology, I'm like, I don't know, do you believe in your calculator? Well, you use it to add up a complex equation. You don't have to believe in it or not. Just use it and see what happens.
Yeah, I
You
mean
know?
that's the truth of it, I think. You know, it's like I think people often and I think it's, you know, in some ways it's good that there's so much discussion where it's like, you know, people are talking about astrology, but I think a lot of people are kind of creating damage because if they actually aren't skilled in it and they're like, "Well, I intuitively think that it's this." And it's like, "No, it's like it's math." It's like a mathematical equation. You know,
Yeah.
it's like
Or
so
It's a
yeah.
career dilemma, trust me, because
yeah.
we didn't go to the University of Michigan to be like have to like sheepishly tell someone what our answering the question, so what do you do, can require a good amount of explanation and fighting through stereotypes. I'm not upset about it. I chose the career and I'm happy I did, but it's entertaining but sometimes a little annoying, just like
Totally.
but I get it because it's been used as this weird parlor game, fortune teller,
Mhm.
and people do like really do that performative stuff with it sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Or there's a very academic arm of it because it has been
yeah,
an academic subject.
Yeah.
And then people get really, maybe not meaning
territorial.
to, but kind of zealous and dogmatic about this is but yeah, it's like, come on,
It's like when
everybody.
when a personal trainer gets like way too dogmatic about like cutting out a food group
Mhm.
or not eating after 8 o'clock or whatever. Everybody has their soapbox, but
Yeah.
our approach is, since we did grow up in a very religious city and with
Yeah.
religion in our household and that sort of thing, with a healthy respect for like when a community was healthy and when it wasn't, and when it
Yeah.
stamped out someone's individuality, and when it flexed to allow for people to be who they were but still belong and be part of it, and just seeing how fuzzy that, how many people walk on the edge of that line. They want that love and support and belonging, but they
Mhm.
feel unsafe
Mhm.
being who they truly are. So what I like about astrology, or love about it, really is that like when you find your I am archetype, or if you want to go full on and do your whole chart, you learn that we all contain multitudes
Mhm.
and a lot of contradictions, and that's actually normal. We're not supposed to fit in these little boxes. So when you find your archetype, that's kind of the beginning of the conversation, not like, well, that's who you are, pack it in and just be that. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, that's how I'm wired. Those are my settings. Now I have more information and consciousness about myself, more awareness. I can make more conscious choices. If I don't want to be a messy maven, hire an organizer, or I'll be aware of it,
or
just
something as
bringing
simple what you
awareness.
guys said about messy mavens. It's like have a closet that has cubbies and then you can close it.
Right.
It's like that's
Right.
easy. That's not going to be something
Right.
that it's like, and it does make your life better. It's like, so
Right.
like I think that's actually like practical information for people to have. It's
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that is what we really aim to do with the book. You cannot you could try to change your nature, but we're not getting into that philosophical debate. Whether you can or not, that's a whole lot of energy. What if you accept your nature just like you accept your body type at a certain point?
Yeah.
Like, you might opt to hack or change that too. That's up to you. But, everything starts with acceptance, and then you can go from there. Like, working with your nature, there's a million solutions and options, but nobody ever tells you that, because our culture is invested in a very profitable industry of change, constant change. And, uh, that's the world we live in, and we've forgotten that. So
yeah.
this is another, just like with our magazine and everything we did, was always about self-acceptance, finding that creative individual spark in yourself and bringing it out. Because life is just a lot more fun when you're not in an argument with the way you would do things naturally.
Well, absolutely. There's enough conflict in the world. We don't have to have inner conflict. It's like, and
Yeah.
you don't have to judge yourself. It's like, this is just something that I am, like these are your, that is what you mean, it's you're hardwired, but it's like, it's like, if there's a way that you can work with it, like work with the flow, which is a better way of like, if you think about the earth and cycles of time and how the animals work and like circadian rhythms, like we're actually animals, it's like, and so to work with the flow rather than against the flow, like it's so much more ease, it's like, and like you guys have such good advice. Like that's why I think of you guys as like the big sisters or camp counselors, because, or like the oracles, right? I'm like, for one, you guys always know before things happen. Like you'll be like, and because I know you're like, Brittany, I think this is going to happen. And then it does. And I'm like, I knew it, it's like, cause the girls told me, it's like, but it is, it's like, you guys have such a good read on humans, it's like, and but it's true. It's like, you've had your TV shows, you've done celebrity charts like Beyonce and Dua Lipa and like Anya Taylor-Joy. And, you've had access to like all of these different people and like but you're so like, everybody is welcome. And, it's like, and I have to like shout out this too. Like we didn't know each other that long and you're like, come to my house. And you literally let me sleep over in your daughter's bed. Sibel was not there. She was in your bed, it's like, but it's like me and Margot just like got in the car and we're like, hang out and have a sleepover at, Auntie Ophi's house, it's like, but that's just kind of how you are. Like you guys are so like cool, and you do like big conferences and you're doing stuff with Fast Company, and it's like you guys have like brilliant minds, but your main, I think, superpower is like that kind of like, you're welcome, come on into my house, it's like, I mean, don't be a creeper, you can be weird, but don't be that kind of weird.
Right. Not everybody is invited.
Right.
Don't be that kind of weird.
Right. But I do
Come
try to
over,
live life
kids.
as one giant a giant slumber party is kind of the way to go without the creepers.
Totally.
No
I mean,
creepers
we were in
invited.
Barcelona and you had just gotten recognized at the airport, in New York on the way here. And then we're in Barcelona and literally you got recognized like 4 times, like just by random strangers.
Funny.
Like that was so amazing. And it's like, but
one who became our friend too.
Because that you adopted, Yes.
But he gave but this is how weird life can be. We randomly met a reader who gave a tour of the mystical and Jewish quarters of Barcelona where our family had lived, and he showed us Astrologer Street.
So cool.
So crazy.
It's so cool. I mean, but that's just kind of how you guys are, it's like you guys just
manifesting. Like, sometimes we're in there, sometimes we're in the portal,
Well, just you meet people randomly and you're like, and now they're my friend, it's like, and also look at how cool that this is. And like, didn't the next day he like, I sadly had to fly out, but it's like, but he like did a Seder with you guys the following day. Like you guys actually became legit friends, but I just love that. It's like,
absolutely.
Yeah, you're like the camp counselor big sister that I think, we talk about like aliens and stuff. And it's like, and I think that like, there's so many more misfits than there are people who like fit. And I think actually it's an illusion. I don't think anybody fits in. I think that they try and they make themselves
Totally
into like a
agree.
little pretzel, but it's the brainwashing
Mhm.
of like, I must do this. I must be like this. I must, you know, be
Oh
in
yeah.
the
Everyone
group, you know?
feels that way. Celebrities, models, no one is immune from that. Some just mask better than others. And it
Yeah.
does go both ways. We're very lucky too to magnetize and manifest amazing people. I feel like we've got a lot of guides helping us out, but then we've all known each other, you know, we've all been on a psychedelic chariot ride together before, you know,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
other side of things. So I don't know. I
Mhm.
feel like human spirits find each other, and I don't know, we're lucky in this lifetime to scoop up lots of really good ones. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's such a testament to you guys as humans, you know? It's like you guys, it's like, yeah, it's just, I think it's
Well,
amazing.
thanks.
Yeah. So I want to hear about Ms. Magazine. How did that happen? Tell me all of the things that you can say.
Yeah. So when we were publishing Hughes at University of Michigan, Gloria came and she had just turned 60. Now she's 90. And somebody gave her a copy of Hughes, and she was speaking at the ballroom at Michigan and invited us up onto the stage and told everybody that they needed to get the magazine and praised it.
Wasn't
It
it
was like such
Susie
a moment.
Gilman, who our friend Susan Jane Gilman, who's an
Right.
awesome author who like connected us to Gloria Steinem, and that was a real amazing,
Yep.
another great
She had
human
interviewed
there.
her
Yeah.
and hooked up for us to meet her. And then we didn't expect her to call us onto stage, and she did. Um, so we asked her to be on the advisory board of the magazine, and she said yes. Now I understand in hindsight, you know, she was older at that point than the new generation of feminists. We were all coming of age, young women, and she knew that Ms. Magazine wasn't as relevant to this third wave, as it was called, of feminists. So she needed to create allies. And I will always admire her. She was so amazing, an amazing Aries. But she had that foresight. She didn't have ego. A lot of, much like the kind of academic astrologer world that Tali described,
Mm.
any kind of intellectual community will become very protective and precious and ageist against younger people, which is something that we also actively fight against in all directions.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, they start to protect what their knowledge is and stop making it relevant or creating alliances with younger generations so that the mission carries on in the right way. But Gloria did not. So she said yes, and a couple years later, she bought Ms. back from the mainstream publisher that owned it. They were going to run it out of business. She got a group of women investors to buy it back. And they called me and asked me if I wanted to try out to be one of the editors. We had just sold our magazine and I was transitioning out of it. So I said yes. I had been about to move to San Francisco to try to find a job in
Yeah.
tech. I turned the U-Haul around and went to New York instead.
That's
Never left.
right. Oh my God, that's
Um,
crazy.
yeah. So um, I worked there only for 9 months, though. So here's the thing that is also why we have the preneur part of Astropreneurs. One of the real great tragedies, I think, of our working world is that you get hired for these jobs a lot of the time because you have big ideas and you stand out and you have a vision. But then as soon as you become an employee, everything changes. It becomes one of those things where you then have to be like everybody else. You have to fit in, you have to conform, much like a religious institution or anything else. And so the thing that got me the job was the thing that made me get the hell out of the
Yeah.
job
Yeah.
because I got it by giving I wrote up a whole manifesto of what Ms. could do differently to attract young women. I had a book that came out called Adios Barbie that was a body image anthology.
So cool.
It's now called Body Outlaws, story for another time. But
I do know that story. It's a good one.
yes, but I was going on tour to colleges. So I think in Gloria's mind, like, what a coup to get someone who was going to be represent Ms. and go out into the world. Gloria is an incredible marketing mind, I now realize.
Mhm.
So, she saw how those dots connected. Send Ophi out. She already has an audience, and she's going to be a bigger one, and she can represent Ms. as an editor, and everybody wins. But inside Ms., like, it was this, they kept the same staff. They were a bit jaded and tired, probably from working as hard as they did to keep the magazine open.
Yeah.
They had their processes that they follow. There are probably a lot of authorities from the IM system. I'm an
Total
innovator.
authority nest.
It was so authority. I hated coming in on time to the office, even though that was 10 a.m. Generous start time, but like, I like waking up, having my coffee, and writing and ideating until I run out of ideas, and then I'll go into places. But that wasn't possible. I had to stop my creative process, just take a shower and take the subway. And by the time I got there, I was pissed off and tired. So anyway, it was not an enjoyable employment experience, but it was an amazing opportunity to work with Gloria. And it also fueled me for my future. Like, don't kill someone's dreams when you bring them into your network. Right now, our chief of staff is doing a poetry book, and and you know what? That's great.
Yeah.
I'm like, as long as you get your work done here, please do that. Because I know that if you keep your fire lit, then I'm hopefully going to get the best of you. And if I'm not getting the best of you and you outgrow it, then go forth into the world. And I hope we had something to do with it. But companies are not structured like that. So it was the best of times and the worst of times. And, I haven't worked for anyone full time in this century, and I hope I never do.
I paired up with Debbie Stoller, who started Bust magazine, to build Mrs.'s first ever website too. That was my small
That was a better
contribution.
gig. That was a better gig. You could do it from home. They didn't know anything about technology. Like, as innovators, we would have been better off like just doing that rather than like trying to fit into this, 1960s, it was 1972. It started the 70s and 80s kind of, magazine structure that was so baked.
And it was down on Wall Street. It just really felt like you should be
they got an office on
Wall
Street. Thought it was so great. Yeah, I actually got taken out by the publisher to Delmonico, the steakhouse. She thought it was a great celebration to welcome me at this good old boys club steakhouse, which I get it, but I was also like, can we also like, I might prefer a cupcake. Can we just not have to do that?
Totally. Yeah. Boys club for a feminist magazine. Interesting.
I mean,
Wall
second
Street.
wave feminism was all about we can do what the guys are doing, and that was a thing for them. But God, we've really come up such an interesting.
I do remember that Gloria made a joke that the office was between the cross streets of Broad and Beaver, which made me love her even more.
God, that's so true.
I mean, she was always so irreverent. She would bring stuff back from colleges she would come to the editorial meetings and bring stuff like Hughes. She probably brought Hughes to Ms. and like, she'd be like, I was on this campus and look at what they're doing. And I'd be like, ooh, I want to write about it. And then the other editors would just be like, oh, there goes Gloria again. I was like, what the hell is going on here? So it was, I came up with this idea of doing a feminist time capsule because I was there at the end of 1999. And then I got recruited by a .com that tripled my salary and I left. And that was my parting gift.
To build a women's site.
To build a women's site
called Womanhood. So that was,
Yes, I went into tech for a minute and then, then got out of there. Got out of the employment
We have not
game.
been employees since 1999. So, yeah.
But it's interesting because, like you mentioned before, Steve Jobs had done that. I think it was like calligraphy and things like that. And it's like tech has been kind of like an underlying theme for you too. And so it's interesting because it's for you, it's very much been, welcoming everyone, celebrating diversity, showing new ways of thinking, but also being like cutting edge. and using the tech. Like you guys build your own websites. Like I don't think people realize like you're so multi-talented. You guys literally do everything. I mean, Tali, like this, for people who are listening onto the audio, so sorry, but for the video, let's see this book. She designed her own book cover. Like what? It's like what don't you do? It's like, it's
an artist who we loved was commissioned, but I guess he was busy and actually gave us something that looked like clip art, which was really upsetting. And I was like, he came up with the concept of like the zodiac wheel as a keyhole, and our publisher liked that, but it looked very different. I was like, all right, let me go to work on the colors, and I just did a mock-up, and then we wound up using it for the actual cover. I mean, at the heart of it all, we're zine makers. We're zine girls. We used to make little books and magazines, notebooks when we were kids about going to the circus, and then like publishing, this is why sun sign astrology works. We're Sagittarians, a sign of media and publishing, and that is like at the core of what we love to do and have done since we were little girls, is make books and magazines and things for people to consume, fun, entertaining media that became more meaningful as we got older, from the circus. Although I think the circus book I was like, oh, I created Burning Man for myself as a kid. Okay.
Yeah. But it's
circuses, tech.
Yeah, but it's interesting to me too, because I mean, I feel like it's to like look at kind of your life and kind of like what you've done. You guys are also excellent writers, and like your horoscopes and your writing, like I have your other books that you've written, like it just, your voice is so clear and it's so hilarious. And it is like, and I think for people who haven't met you in real life, like they're getting the real you when they read your things, it's like, and it is,
Right.
It's like, it's such an enjoyable, because I think there's multiple ways of doing things. And I think like there's a need for everything. And I think the democratization of, empowering people and also doing it in a way that is accessible and kind of, empowers everyone. It's like there's a way to do it in a fun way. And you guys don't beat about the bush. You talk about real things, but you do it in a way that I think is pretty accessible and doesn't, and also like when people do, like I see sometimes, especially like with politics going on right now, people sometimes have like snarky comments, but I love the Mercury and Scorpio comebacks. Like it's all I can do to not say anything because I get involved, as you know, but it's like, but you don't need my help. And I just like see how you respond and I just start giggling. Like, it's just like, it cracks me up. It's like, but you guys like do such a good job, I think, making everybody feel welcome, but also you're very principled, which I think is like, it's a good balance to strike.
I've been hearing that people have been enjoying reading the comments of our posts lately, because we don't get incredibly, you can't not get political about, like, don't bring politics into astrology, but politics are part of our experience on Earth, so there's no way to not talk about them, so
well, and you guys are very justice and social activists. Like you guys actually are activists. And so I do kind of find it funny, like, because there's the one that you're particularly good at responding to, and I just was giggling, but I was like, do you not know them? I'm like, they're actual activists. So it's like, at this point, it's like, maybe, you should be muting for a little bit, because you cannot not say anything. Like, and like, that's kind of the thing about your guys' principles and your values that I really love so much and respond to myself, because there's room for everyone and everyone should be accepted. If there are rhetorics or, possible issues where we might lose rights, or you're not going to not say anything. Like literally your entire career has been sticking up for the underdog and making sure that everybody's welcome. So it's like, if you don't like it, bye. It's like, it's,
I just go, I got somebody like, why are you talking about politics? And like her entire feed was like, food, me eating a meal, I'm like, we'll be back with lipstick horoscopes next week. Okay.
There are other astrologers that can do that. That's not who I'm following. It's like, it's
following this.
Right. It's like,
I love how people tell you what you can and can't put on your own feed. It's like someone coming into your house and being like, why did you hang a picture of your dog up? Well, that's because it's what I care about and it's my house.
Right.
So you don't have to come in. That's cool.
Like, that's the thing. There's room for everyone, but don't be rude. Because if you're rude, then you can
decorate your own house with lipstick.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Well, I want to be conscious of your time, but I have a couple more things I want to ask you. So
Okay,
you're part of my
yes.
project Siren Song. What would you hope for your legacy, and what would you say your siren song is? And we'll have both of you answer.
Mm.
I think for me, I would say it's inclusivity. I really want people to like see what a world looks like where we include each other and we look around and say, this person might feel like a misfit. Why don't I invite them in instead of letting them sit there on their own and feel weird and awkward, Or just like, why don't I include another perspective or another type of person, another gender in the mix? Like, just if people can see that modeled, then
Mm-hmm.
because I do think people want to be that way at the heart, but they don't know a lot of times how, or they've been hurt or traumatized by someone from a different social group.
Mm-hmm.
So they then develop these defenses. But I think there's room to move so far beyond that. And I think we all feel like are most connected to our souls when we're connected to soul family as a concept.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, and you can't imagine something that you've never seen. That's something that I know as a photographer and someone who's worked in media. You guys have worked in
Mm-hmm.
media a long time, you know that. And so I think, it's like having examples is a really important thing. And you guys have been trailblazers your whole
Thank
lives,
you.
So it's like, I think that is unusual to be able to see something that you've never seen. But someone's got to start it.
You're
And
an innovator. It's not. That's what you do all day long.
Well, we
exactly.
know what it's like to be the weirdos and misfits and not of a place. And we also know what it's like to have somebody extend a hand and say,
Yeah.
you guys are cool. You're different, but you're cool and come on and hang out. And how good and affirming that felt in those moments. So doing that for others whenever possible feels
Yeah.
right. Even though we
Yeah.
we had our mean girl bully moments too, that I'm ashamed of, but that's, you go through the process and you're like, okay, not going to do that anymore.
Well, I
Yeah.
think that a lot of times that happens with kids, right? Like they've
Hmm.
been
Hmm.
bullied, so then they think that that's what it's supposed to
Yeah.
be, and then they bully, and then their parents are like, "Why did you do that?" And it's because they were bullied, so they thought that they had to do it too.
I
So
was
it's
trying to
like,
fit in with
For
the
sure.
yeah,
bullies, It was like, okay. I mean, we weren't like terrible, but there were a couple,
I can't imagine you guys were ever really that mean, It's like, but it is something that you can't learn, you have to like
yeah,
sometimes make mistakes in order to learn, right?
totally. It was sixth grade, but
If
I still
Facebook
remember
is
memeing.
reporting accurately, those people only think good things about us and don't
I
remember it.
have
But we
apologized to them
have.
all on Facebook, the three people who I feel guilty about. But
Oh,
I
well,
can't
thanks
let
for
go
doing
of
that PR work for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're welcome. You're welcome.
I mean, that's
Selfish.
a good
No, I'm
example
kidding.
too. It's like where you take you take responsibility for where you've maybe messed up, and then you're like, I'm so sorry I did that, and now I'm more informed and I feel badly and I'm not going to behave that way anymore, and I'm sorry, and now I'm doing better. Like that's a good example to set for people too. I think right now especially, it's like when you're talking to people and you make a mistake because you're not informed about certain groups. I think that that's coming up a lot right now, at least on social media, right? You're trying to help, and then you say things and you say the wrong things, and rather than taking that, people often center and then they get defensive and they say the wrong things, right? That's not the way to do it,
Yeah.
right? And you guys are like, that's just saying that, I think, will be helpful for people to hear. It's like, it's
Because
okay.
everyone can be a bully. Anyone can be a bully, even if you're the most welcoming person. It's like we all move through these different spaces trying to find that universal need of belonging. And you might try on, well, if I fit in with these, I know I
Yeah.
can. Yeah. So
Well, I think everybody has a blind spot, right? And like that's the thing that you guys have been so good about
sure.
talking about is privilege, and like how we need to be like accepting of everybody. It's like you sometimes have blind spots, and it's like, so when someone is then sharing their experience, it's good to like listen to them and then be like, "Oh, I could do better with this," or "Oh,
Yeah.
like this helps inform how I move forward." I think that's super important. That's a great siren song. I love that, Tali. Ophi,
Thank
what
you.
about you?
Thank you.
Yeah. For me, it's being resourceful, because I think we all have the ability to tap into, we don't all have equal resources by any stretch of the imagination, but we have a lot more than we think we do. And you can see that. Like, there are people that make a whole lot out of a whole lot less. You don't have to have your family's name etched into the side of a building to create something great in this world. You just, if you, and people and friendships and relationships are resources too. So all the more reason to be inclusive, welcoming, bring on the camp counselor vibe. Camp was a big part of our lives. Our mom being the Girl Scout leader, we started going camping in like second grade, I think. And it was just such a magical week that we'd look for. We went winter camping, we went summer camping. And in those moments, we had to be resourceful. We had to build fires. We had to figure out how to entertain ourselves sledding down the hill outside of this wood cabin. We had to make, make fun wherever we went out of nothing. And maybe that's a Gen X thing, but it's
a rat thing too.
It's a rat thing. And I think it's in every human, to be that way. Like maybe we have too many tech toys and our muscles are atrophying as a culture, but that doesn't mean it's not within us. So it just feels good, that tapping into that resourcefulness and creativity. So that's mine.
You see a garbage can lid, I see a sled.
Absolutely. I mean, I have picked up on a theme, so far with these interviews, and it's things where it is that kind of like alchemy and that transmutation, where it's like you take something and then you make it work for you. It's like you find ingredients and then you take them and you make something else out of them. And I think that's not a surprise to me that we're friends.
Well, you're like that. You do that every time you put a set together or go to a shoot. You're you took the best picture of us that anybody ever has. So, we got to set up our next shoot with you for sure.
Thank you. Well, I'm always team the twins. Absolutely. All right.
Astro triplet.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I do feel like I've been like adopted as a little sister, so I'm happy.
Yeah, totally.
For sure.
Our sister Leora will be like, okay, cool.
Well, she's a Libra too, so she's like, okay,
exactly.
Great.
She'll be like, yeah, she'll be happy to have you there. Yep.
You got to balance out two Sages with an extra Libra.
Exactly. Yep.
I love it. Okay, so I have two more things. What advice would you give your younger self? And that could be as a teenager, a child, or even 10 years ago.
The advice I'd give my younger self is to just remember that there are more options out there. I used to get so fixated on everything being like the last possibility, and, just keep moving. Keep it moving. Let yourself have your feelings, but know that they'll pass.
Mm-hmm. I would say kind of just know that you have something to offer, and it doesn't matter that you're experienced or, that you know what this whole world you're entering is about. Take the risk anyway and just try something new. You don't have to be as afraid as you are. It always works out.
I love that. That's great. What is, I always ask everybody, what's your secret delight? That's supposed to stay a secret. So what's your not so secret delight, or something that delights you, something that you can publicly share?
Dachshunds, absolutely. Anytime I see one, and you saw Lux, I brought him on earlier. Well, I have my 6-year-old dachshund Lux, but any time I can go to like a dachshund parade or I see one on the street, it just delight. It's just sheer delight.
Yes, pure delight.
I'm gonna roll with that one too.
Little Magnolia.
So behind me is a giant dachshund painting that you can only see his neck. But yes, not so secret delight. Definitely dachshunds.
I love it. When your new baby she's part dachshund.
Part dachshund, part cavalier. It's a dashalier, but
so
I see the dachshund in her. You can't not.
I love it. My not so secret delight this week is Ophi does this incredible impression. So when we were in Barcelona, she came up with this character, and it gives me so much joy. And I'm so delighted she's willing to do her impression for all of you.
Well, we'll see. I mean, so Brittany, what you didn't tell them, was that we were looking at the Sagrada Familia, and we paid for an Airbnb right outside of it, and they turned the lights off. We were promised a show, and they turned off the lights at 11. So
how dare they? It brings me so much joy. Anyway,
Oh my God.
thank you so much for coming to my
Sagrada
show.
Familia.
It was such a delight to have this conversation. You know, I love you both to pieces, and it's just I'm so grateful
Love
that
you
you guys
too.
wanted to be on this. So,
Oh my God,
Oh
such
my
a
God.
such a not so secret delight to be here.
a real delight.
until our
Always,
commune.
always.
Until the Golden Girls and
Yes.
beyond.
Exactly. Exactly. That's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining today's show, and thank you for spending the time with us. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. The AstroTwins you can find on Instagram and on their TikTok under AstroTwins. Their website where you can find all things stars, that's astrostyle.com. They have horoscopes, they have their calculators for their IAM system. You can get your natal birth chart information all on astrostyle.com. You can find my work at brittanyambridge.com. You can follow me on Instagram. My handle is brittanyambridge. And if you would like to leave a review, I'd really appreciate it. You may or may not get name dropped on the show. And, you know, we all love that gold star at the end, so I'd appreciate that. For credits, we've got our podcast cover art was designed by Stephanie Bruckler, and our producer is Juan Paulini Diaz. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next time.